and welcome to Logistic Talks. My name is Eric Gantier and I'm the president of the global sector of engineering and manufacturing. Today we will be discussing capacity constraint and rising logistic costs with Mark Chadwick. He is the president of the Global Shippers Association, the GSA.
My name is Mark Chadwick. I'm the president of the Global Shippers Association. The GSA is a group of non-competing shippers that combine their volumes to negotiate with major logistics companies.
Mark, thank you again for being with us this morning. You are buying massive amount of international transportation worth $5 billion. So tell me, how much more difficult is your life over the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been very difficult for anyone who works in logistics on your side of the table, our side as shippers. It's been very difficult. We used to think that volcano was a big problem, right? And we all lived through that crisis. And what we live through the equivalent of a volcano now, pretty much every month, from lockdowns to capacity crunch to backlogs at ports, at airports, labor crisis. It's just, the world seems to be throwing everything at us this year and last year. A little bit fatigued, but we're working hard to try and maintain and strengthen the partnerships that we've got with companies like DHL and other major logistics providers to bring value to our customers, to keep costs as low as we can. I mean, in this market, obviously, we've all seen a big increase in cost, but getting access to capacity and quality service has always been important for the GSA and never more so than now.
So tell me, to adapt this crisis best, what are the strategic changes that you made in your procurement?
So we did a few things. We implemented a COVID surcharge for some of our air freight to basically try and take some of the volatility out of into a charge that could be applied that didn't affect the long-term rates. We need to make sure we've got access to capacity with the right partners, but that also means being realistic about price. We've needed to be realistic about contracts. If they've been in place for the last 20 years, why aren't they valid now? But just recognize that the world has changed and we've needed to be flexible there. There are thousands of forwarders, but we're looking for partners who have either their own capacity or really robust access to capacity with the airlines. That's helped us make sure we can get a reasonable price as compared to the market, but access to capacity and access to service have been key, and they've always been important to the GSA members, but I think obviously in times like now, we need stability. And so we've pivoted as well in our negotiation style.
Sure, thank you for this. Talking about negotiations, we see a lot of our customers struggling with, what is the best way for me to buy? Should I spot rate type of buy things on the spot? Should I look for capacity? Should I favor the validity of the rates or the very best rate? Could you share some little what you have been doing with the GSA?
Yeah, we've tried as much as possible to have rates in contracts. We avoid the spot market if we can, but then there are markets like China in the middle of COVID lockdown in Shanghai, where if you don't have very stable volumes either from a shipper side, you're going to have to pivot and be open to working with the spot quote market. But we've really tried to get as much as we can into contracts. That might mean having some flexible terms in those contracts, so you're able to adjust pricing as the market goes up and down.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Tell me something. Have you or any of your members suffered any shortage of capacity?
Massive amount of capacity shortage. We thought we'd seen the worst, but this year has actually been worse as we've gone through our negotiations. We've had some cases where we've literally only been able to secure half of what we needed through contract, and the rest we've had to pivot to different models. So for ocean freight, our preference was to work directly with the carriers. we've found that NVOCCs, freight forwarders, have been a great tool to take up the slack that we've not been able to get locked into contract with the carriers. We've been able to go to the forwarders. And I see that as a long-term transition. I think long-term we'll most probably continue to work directly with the carriers for some of the major lanes, but we'll be looking at freight forwarders, big global partners, forwarders, to help us with another chunk of that.
Thank you. I like that you talk highly about freight forwarders.
Yes.
Tell me about this capacity constraint. Have you seen any of your members increasing their level of inventory to avoid this?
We've certainly seen some of that, trying to forward deploy some of the inventory. What we're seeing a pivot is away from just in time, more to just in case. And I think that's going to be a long-term thing that we need to keep in mind. It's no good having a business continuity plan if in reality you're relying on last-minute shipments straight out of production, making it from one side of the world to the other in a matter of days. We can't count on that anymore.
Right.
I think right now, having a decent inventory is key, and that's why all the warehouses are full everywhere. Long term, we probably need to find a little bit more balance, but I can't imagine the days of just in time, where you have no safety stock on hand coming back anytime soon. Yeah.
Talking about the long term, Mark, as we all thought that the COVID was over, then unfortunately this war in Ukraine with Russia happened. How did this affect your business and the businesses of your partners?
We've had to kind of slightly adjust our strategy, postpone the negotiations somewhat. The impact of not being able to fly through Russian airspace, the impact of the effect on fuel. It's colossal, from filling up the gas tank, which from an air freight perspective, that has a massive impact. And from the fact that you need to fly around, you need to stop in Dubai to refuel. So we've seen increase in transit times, increase in cost. Some of the stability we'd hoped for has evaporated. A lot of the charter capacity has gone, obviously because of the Russian aircraft that can't be used. So that's been a massive challenge for logistics professionals, apart from, of course, the humanitarian side of it being such a tragedy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Mark, let me ask you, what have you learned over this pandemic, and what is it that you think will change the way you will procure in the future?
So we've learned how resilient we are, but I think the value of partnership, maybe not a learning, but a validation that this is something I've believed in for a long time. Having the right partners is maybe a learning. We've got to make sure that we're working with companies with access to capacity, with global reach, as I think is critical, not chasing the lowest cost, but also honouring the providers that have stood by us during these last 2 years. We've really learned who our true partners are and who are the ones that maybe not so much. So we'll be carrying that with us as we go forward.
Good.
Okay.
Mark, unfortunately, we're getting closer to the end of this great discussion we had with you this morning. Is there any question I didn't ask and yet you would like to answer from everything you've seen over this pandemic, these prices, the capacity, the war? Anything else you would like to share with us this morning?
I think, and it's not just to sound like a commercial for DHL, but I think that we have some key partners. DHL has certainly been one of them that have really stood with us, with all of our shippers through these last couple of years. And I think we're grateful, and it's from the leadership all the way through the organization to the warehousing teams, to distribution centers, to drivers of the vehicles. The commitment that your company's shown has been really, it's made a big difference to us. I want to take the opportunity to say thank you on behalf of all of us. And I think as shippers, just as we look to the future, we've got to remember these partnerships. And there are others who've been, frankly, very mercenary. And I think when those mercenaries come knocking on the door with a container rate that's $50 lower than our partner, we need to make sure as shippers that we're keeping that door closed. Although the scientists will tell us probably we will at some point. Hopefully it's a long way off. But we need to be ready for the next major global event, and we can only do that if we stick by our partners.
All right. Okay. Well, Mark, really, I wanted to thank you very much in your position. It's great that you can share, your experience, the knowledge, the best practices that you've seen over this pandemic. So I'm going to wish you luck with the GSA and all the best until the next pandemic is going to hit at some point.
Thanks very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Thanks.